Part 15. Who would marry into the family after being reborn? Author, Ben Pao de Ba Ling Ho. Chapter 141. Li Manman was naturally not naive enough to believe such nonsense. The two of them went back to school and continued their Tuesday afternoon refresher course. Wu Wei turned around and returned to the guest house, picked up his stitches and began to sew and mend, while Ma Heidao went out for dinner. After an afternoon's work, I finally managed to sew all sorts of stitches. When Yang Chiao came over in the evening, she still felt that the stitching was not dense enough, so she immersed herself in checking for leaks and filling in the gaps again. Just then, there was a knock on the door. When Wu Wei opened the door, he saw Ma Heidao saying with excitement and worry, "Master, Chiao Kuliang is here. He is in my room." After Wu Wei said hello to Yang Chiao, he closed the door and went directly to the room diagonally opposite. When he opened the door, Chiao Kuliang turned his head away in order to prevent Wu Wei from seeing his bruised nose and face. In fact, in Wu Wei's view, it would be strange if Chiao Kuliang didn't come back with a bruise and a swollen face during the 2 days he was out. It is said that a strong dragon cannot overwhelm a local snake. What's more, Chiao Kuliang, who has just arrived, is not even a dragon, let alone a strong dragon. Wu Wei threw a flower over, sat down in front of the other party and said, "What's going on? Do you want to talk?" For Wu Wei, it didn't matter even if Chiao Kuliang didn't want to say it. He just asked casually. To take a step back, even if Chiao Kuliang really said it out of the blue, Wu Wei himself had to think carefully before speaking. After all, he still had so much cash on him. Safety must come first in everything. Chiao Kuliang lit up the cigarette, and his curled up body suddenly stretched out. Even the tense mentality also gained a moment of relaxation. There was also a sense of relief in his tone. When I first arrived in Shanghai, I asked everywhere where I could dump treasury bonds. Later I asked around and heard about a place called Peace Park. Wu Wei couldn't help but his eyelids twitched when he heard this. No way, no way. Could it be that Chiao Kuliang's miserable appearance was related to that old guy Tianfuxian? After all, Peace Park is his territory. When Chiao Kuliang talked about the group of Qigong practitioners, Wu Wei was immediately convinced. Chiao Kuliang soon joined Tianfuxian's small Qigong group and became a member of the group that dumped treasury bills. But he is an honest man. Others are half collecting and half stealing, but he is the only one who is innocent and takes as much as he deserves. Never take the opportunity of counting treasury bills to do anything secretly. As a result, his reputation spread quickly. Many people who exchange treasury bills come here because of its reputation. Chiao Kuliang also took the opportunity to make small profits but quick turnover and made a lot of money. If things continued like this, he wouldn't be able to do this, because it wouldn't affect Tianfuxian's interests. Until one day, Tianfuxian suddenly discovered that this guy was already more popular than him, a Qigong master. Bad luck ensues. Not only did they find someone to rob Chiao Kuliang of everything, but he also took them directly into the deportation station. 2 days ago, after Chiao Kuliang was rescued, I found Peace Park the first time. But he was working alone, and his body was so weak that he couldn't be compared to Wu Wei's tall men and horses. In the end, where can I get any benefits? In Wu Wei's view, Tianfuxian was lucky if he didn't let anyone make him enter the palace for the second time. Even so, Wu Wei still decided to go and meet this Tianfuxian. Because Wu Wei knew where this guy's life gate was. You should take a good bath first, let Heidao take you out for a good meal, and then come back and have a good sleep. Let's wait until tomorrow. After saying this, Wu Wei did not forget to add, if you continue to insist on your own way, I will never care about your business. Putting these words aside, he turned and returned to the room. Yang Chiao had just finished sewing 2 military coats. Wu Wei sat down and just stretched out his hand to rub his brow. Chiao, don't stick to him, give him a massage. Wu Wei came back to his senses, looked at the bedside and said, where is the 2,000 yuan I left for you? Yang Kiao's eyes were bright, and she patted her pocket casually and said, I put it all away, are you still planning to take it back? Seeing this, Wu Wei took the person in his arms with his backhand, put him on his leg and said, I won't take it back, but I have to check it to prevent you from fooling me again. This inspection lasted another night. Until I woke up early on the 31st, I felt refreshed. When I turned over, I found that Chiao was still there, so I had to do another morning exercise. At the end of your workout, you feel refreshed. Even Wu Wei himself felt that he was somewhat of a master. More than half an hour later, Wu Wei, Ma Heidao and Xiao Kuliang appeared at the entrance of Peace Park and were recognized immediately. May I ask if you are Master Liang Chen, the master who came down from the mountain before? Wu Wei nodded without changing his expression. At that time, except for Tianfuxian, everyone else only knew his name was Liang Chen. The man immediately shouted to the surrounding people. Soon, Wu Wei was surrounded by a large circle of fanatics obsessed with Qigong. Seeing this scene, Xiao Kuliang was stunned. How did Wu Wei become a master? And the way they looked at Wu Wei was even more fanatical than when they looked at Tianfuxian. In contrast, Ma Heidao didn't care about this. He only cared about protecting his master. Wu Wei took his time and answered a few questions about the realm of Qigong with a smile. Tianfuxian showed up in a hurry. After driving away everyone, Tianfuxian glanced at Xiao Kuliang beside Wu Wei, and his expression changed several times. Then he smiled and said, Brother Wu, the flood washed away the Dragon King temple. No one had ever thought that this brother Xiao would be your man. So, I will have a drink at noon today to apologize to brother Xiao, what do you think? Wu Wei turned his head and looked at Xiao Kuliang. Xiao Kuliang gritted his teeth and said, you cannot eat the meal, but I must take back what belongs to me. Wu Wei turned around and raised his eyebrows at Tianfuxian and said, to be honest, Master Tian. The Xiao brother you mentioned is my brother-in-law. Even if the flood washed away the Dragon King temple, you first put him in the shelter and repatriation station, and beat him like this. It's not justifiable to just have a feast anyway, right? Master Tian, I have always convinced people with virtue, and I never like these fighting and killing. But this does not mean that I have no people under my command. What do you think? The speech was well reasoned and hard. Tianfuxian frowned and then relaxed his brows and said, Brother Wu, for your sake, I will pay for the loss of this Xiao brother. But I also have a condition. He can't come to my territory to mess things up in the future. This is a bit of a black and white reversal. But Wu Wei still looked at Xiao Kuliang first and asked for his opinion. Seeing him nod, he agreed immediately and said, no problem, my brother-in-law doesn't want to see you again, so let's keep out of each other's way from now on. Who would marry into the family after being reborn? Author, Ben Pao de Ba Ling Ho. Chapter 142. Half an hour later, Xiao Kuliang got the more than 1,000 yuan that belonged to him as he wished. This was the result of his hard work since he left home. Seeing so much money, he got it back. Xiao Kuliang felt like he was dreaming. He was so excited that he was shaking all over. He kept asking Ma Heidao to pinch him. Ma Heidao couldn't bear it and thought he was crazy. But he couldn't stand Xiao Kuliang's repeated pleas. Then Ma Heidao pinched him unexpectedly, picking the most defenseless soft flesh on people. This move was obviously practiced at home when he was young, playing with his brothers and sisters. Xiao Kuliang was caught off guard and screamed. So that his lips that had just scabbed were torn again, and tears came up. It was hard to tell whether he was crying because of the sudden pain, or he suddenly remembered the hard work during this period and felt wronged. But one thing is certain, that is, all this is not a dream. Chiao Kuliang wiped the moisture from the corners of his eyes, and then looked at Wu Wei, and he suddenly realized something. It seems that this guy's success is by no means accidental. Whether it is the ways of the world or the understanding of the outside world, he is far better than himself. In a way, it is not an exaggeration to say that he is a master coming out of the mountains. Back to the guest house, Chiao Kuliang resumed his previous carefreeness. He patted his chest loudly and shouted that he would treat Wu Wei and Ma Haidao to dinner. Wu Wei understood his feelings. After all, he had been depressed for so many days, and finally he could raise his head and feel proud. So he decisively agreed. Not only agreed, but he also wanted to bring one more person. As a result, when he returned to the room, he found that he had to bring two more. Because Li Manman was also here. So everyone packed their luggage and checked out first. Then they went straight to the small restaurant next to the guest house with Chiao Kuliang. Suddenly two girls appeared, and Chiao Kuliang, who always called himself a playboy, became more and more free and lively. But he soon recognized that one of them was Yang Chiao. The good impression he had just built on Wu Wei was gone in an instant. But when his eyes fell on the girl next to Yang Chiao, his eyebrows and eyes suddenly brightened. Is this love at first sight? Chiao Kuliang felt as if he was in love and warm. In contrast, Wu Wei was also very strange. In fact, he brought Yang Chiao out to prepare for Chiao Kuliang's trouble. But this guy said nothing. It's impossible that he is blind like Ma Haidao, right? It wasn't until he entered the small restaurant and sat down that Wu Wei found the clue. It turned out that this guy fell into the beauty trap first, and his eyes were fixed on Li Manman, and he couldn't pull them out. This guy, who can't choose anyone else, must choose the top student of the University of Finance and Economics? Is it so difficult to talk about love for the first time? Wu Wei knew what was going on, so he didn't say much. Some things can only be figured out after hitting the wall, so it's useless to talk about them. As for things that can't be figured out even if you hit the wall, it's even more useless to talk about them. So it's better not to say anything. So by the end of the farewell dinner, even Yang Chiao saw the clues. Only Li Manman was still immersed in the endless gossip, unaware of it. Chiao pulled her clothes several times. In the end, Wu Wei looked at his watch and made a decision. It's almost time, you should go back to class, and we should go back too. Li Manman was interrupted like this. She was still not satisfied, but she realized that the separation was suddenly in front of her. She turned around and looked at her best friend Chiao. The girl even lowered her head, afraid that her man would see the reluctance in her eyes. Humph, what's so good about this man? Chiao, who is hard-working and beautiful, deserves such attachment. Until Li Manman found out, Wu Wei pulled Chiao aside and forced the curled-up big unity into her. Forget it, just ignore what I said. Chiao wanted to refuse it, but unfortunately she couldn't resist this man and had to accept it. At the same time, Chiao Kuliang paid the bill in high spirits. He even threw the bill in front of Li Manman. Unfortunately, Li Manman was always sneaking glances at Wu Wei and Chiao and didn't notice it at all. Study hard and live well. Don't panic when things happen, I'll take care of everything. After leaving Chiao with a 16-character instruction, Wu Wei got on the red Lotta that he raised his hand to call. After all, there were 3 old men, each with luggage, and 2 of them were wrapped in military coats. The turtle car was definitely not crowded. Waving goodbye, they were all interrupted by the Lotta driver's accelerator. Wu Wei reported Nanjing East Road. Chiao Kuliang reluctantly withdrew his gaze and asked Wu Wei, who was sitting on the passenger seat, what is the name of Yang Chiao's classmate? Is there a contact number? Chiao Kuliang even took the initiative to betray his youngest sister. Tell me her contact information, so I don't have to mention Chiao to Yuyan when I go back. At this time, Ma Haidao realized it belatedly, so that person is Yang Chiao Chiao. I was wondering why I always looked familiar, but I couldn't recognize her. She has changed too much. Wu Wei first corrected Ma Haidao and said, "You have to call her master's wife." Ma Haidao called her master's wife in silence. Then Wu Wei asked Jiao Kuliang, "Is this your attitude of begging for help? No wonder you were beaten like that. Your brain is really not suitable for doing business." Jiao Kuliang was stunned. It was over. Wu Wei understood his kindness as a threat and didn't buy it. Fortunately, with more experience, Jiao Kuliang's temper has changed, at least he can bend and stretch. "I'm sorry, Boss Wu, it's all my fault. But Kiao's classmate, please do me a favor and help me. After all, we are together, you and Yuyan can get married earlier, right?" Wu Wei sighed, this guy must have named the child. But he still couldn't help but remind her, she is a college student, and you are an unemployed vagrant. You should know how big the gap between you two is, right? I can give you her contact information, and even let Jiao say more good things for you. But this can't change the gap between you two. These words, like a basin of cold water, instantly calmed Jiao Kuliang down. While calming down, Jiao Kuliang still said firmly, "I want to give it a try." Wu Wei said no more, "No problem." Not long after, little Lotta arrived at Nanjing East Road. Everyone went straight to the first department store. Wu Wei grabbed candy, chocolate, and female consumer products and bought them all. Jiao Kuliang spent most of his few thousand yuan, leaving only money for the return trip. Ma Haidao was also dazzled by the dazzling array of goods. But any single item was enough to pay for several months of his salary, so he didn't dare to buy anything. He even felt guilty when he looked at the items for a few more times. An hour later, Wu Wei and Jiao Kuliang returned with their bags full of stuff. Only Ma Haidao had nothing in his hands, and didn't buy anything. Then Wu Wei hailed a Polonaise, went straight to the train station, and bought a ticket for the return trip that night. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Who would marry into the family after being reborn? Author, Ben Pao de Ba Ling Ho. Chapter 143. Originally, this was the return trip. Wu Wei planned to stop in the provincial capital so that he could go to the Red Star Machinery Factory to buy a brick-making machine. As a result, Jiao Kuliang's incident happened. Not only was there one more person on the road, but there was also an extra expense. Wu Wei was worried that Jiao Kuliang would do something else when he arrived in the provincial capital. In addition, the current rotary kiln had just started construction, and the brick kiln factory was in ruins. Even if the brick-making machine was purchased, there was no place to put it. It would be better to wait until the rotary kiln was almost built after the new year, and the brick kiln factory was almost finished. Then come here to buy it. After all, as long as Wu Wei kept dealing in treasury bonds, he would have no shortage of opportunities to come out. So the return ticket that night was to go directly back to Pengcheng. The three of us took care of each other along the way, and everything was safe. At around 3 o'clock in the morning, we arrived in Pengcheng under the stars. When we came out of Pengcheng railway station, the cold weather in the north suddenly hit us. In addition, it was still dark, and it felt like he was thrown into an ice cellar. Wu Wei immediately took the two of them to find a noodle shop. Each of them had a bowl of hot noodle soup, and after swallowing it, he felt like he had come back to life. Then he ran to the bus station not far away, took the first minibus ticket back to the county town, and rushed back to the county town without stopping. Even so, it was still bright when he returned to Bailun. As soon as he got off the bus, Jiao Kuliang excitedly took the phone number Wu Wei gave him and wanted to try it. Wu Wei raised his wrist and looked at his watch, It's strange that you can find anyone if you call at this time. If you have that time, you might as well go home and report that you are safe. Chiao Kuliang thought about it and it was right. It is true that it is easy to get in the phone at this time in the morning, but there is a high probability that no one will answer. As for going home to report that he is safe, Chiao Kuliang didn't need to think about it, he knew that this was a dead end. Even if he brought gifts for everyone in his family in his bag, he didn't have the courage to do so. But on the surface, he still tried to hold on. Why don't you come back with me? Then we can hold a welcoming banquet and a thank you banquet together, so that my mother won't have to work twice. Wu Wei laughed when he heard it. I have a lot of things to do, and I don't know when I can finish them. Chiao Kuliang insisted, I'll wait for you. So Wu Wei could only take the two of them back to the Bai Road courtyard first. There was no one in the Bai Road courtyard during the day. Only De Huang hid under the eaves, watching the house silently. Wu Wei opened the door and entered the house. The three-burner coal stove closed the wind door, leaving only a few small gaps. Even so, the warmth inside the house was incomparable to the outside. Wu Wei and Ma Haidao took off the military coats that had been wrapped all the way, and then they found scissors and started to remove the stitches. Chiao Kuliang touched the cup and poured a cup of tea. Then he silently watched the master and apprentice take money out of the worn-out military coats. At first, Chiao Kuliang was able to remain calm. After all, this way of hiding money was not uncommon. But when the big unity on the 8 immortal table piled up more and more, Chiao Kuliang began to get restless. Even so, the two military coats were only half unpacked. How much money would it really cost to unpack them all? After an hour or so, Chiao Kuliang finally got the answer, 130,000 yuan. In comparison, he had worked hard, suffered a beating, and went to the detention and repatriation station to earn a few thousand yuan. Not even a fraction of that. After confirming that the number was correct, Wu Wei counted out 30 big unity notes on the spot and gave them to Ma Haidao, saying, count it as your hard work fee, take it back and buy a new car. Ma Haidao subconsciously refused. After all, he had not spent a penny in the past few days, and he had been eating, drinking, and running around. Now, how could he get any hard work fee? Seeing this, Chiao Kuliang said, take it. Then he said to Wu Wei, if I had known, I would have fought you. But Wu Wei said, can you take a beating or bluff with your body? Ah, yes, yes, yes. Chiao Kuliang had given up resistance. After all, he had lost face in front of Wu Wei, his cheap brother-in-law. After counting the money, Wu Wei roughly coded it and divided it into two parts. Then he took the 2 silk scarves he bought at the first department store and stood up and said, I'm going to do something. Haidao, buy a new car now. I'll be back soon. It's just right for the three of us to ride a bike back. Chiao Kuliang was left alone, so he volunteered, I'll go with you. In this way, Chiao Kuliang accompanied Ma Haidao and rode Ma Jinbao's old bicycle to Xingfu Road. Wu Wei also locked the door and went straight to the Bai Road Bank. First, I deposited a deposit slip for 80,000 yuan, and then took the remaining 50,000 yuan to the meat processing factory. Today is Thursday. Although it is New Year's Day, there is no holiday. So when Wu Wei arrived at the meat processing factory, he easily found 2 factory beauties. The 3 of them found an empty meeting room and counted the money in person. Finally, Wang Jing held the banknotes in her arms, but still stretched out her hand to Wu Wei and said, where is the gift? Sure enough, this woman cares more about gifts than business. Fortunately, Wu Wei had prepared and brought 2 identical silk scarves. In the eyes of Wang Jing and Yu Lily, this was Wu Wei's equal treatment of the 2. But in Wu Wei's eyes, he just picked up a souvenir. The price is not expensive, and anyone can use it. After finishing all this, Wu Wei returned to the small courtyard of Bai Road. Ma Haidao's new car has been bought back, and he is riding back and forth on Bai Road in front. It felt so fresh, just like when you first learned how to ride a bike. The three of them had a bowl of beef noodles at a noodle shop on Bai Road to fill their stomachs. Wu Wei then said to Chiao Kuliang, "Let's go, it's time to go back." Now it was Chiao Kuliang's turn to hesitate. How about we wait until dark before going back? Is he afraid of going back during the day and being embarrassed? Wu Wei laughed and joked, "It's okay to go back later. It's just in time for the master to get off work. I'll give you a meal of bamboo shoots and fried meat, and you can save dinner." Chiao Kuliang obviously had experience with this, and even his buttocks tightened when he heard it. After a moment, he finally gritted his teeth and said, "No matter what, sticking your head out is a knife, and shrinking your head is also a knife. Let's go back." So the three of them each pushed a car and went out. Ma Haidao was riding a new car, and Wu Wei's 28 bar was not old either. Only Chiao Kuliang was riding Ma Jinbao's old car, which made a rattling sound all the way. However, he had no time to care about these things. He was worried and was thinking about how to face his parents and the villagers. All the way out of the Baiguan Bridge, Ma Haidao pedaled the new bike very fast. Wu Wei was not far away in the middle. From time to time, he had to look back and urge Chiao Kuliang, "Hurry up." Even if Chiao Kuliang was dawdling, he returned to Daowen village in half an hour. Wu Wei did not stop when passing by the fence yard, and did not stop when passing through the village office. He pedaled all the way to the gate of the Chiao family compound. Chiao Moli, who had been looking at the stone roller at the gate, jumped down and clapped her hands and said, "Brother Kuliang looks good, no missing arms or legs." Before she finished speaking, she was glared at by Lu Hong next to her. Who would marry into the family after being reborn? Author, Ben Pao de Ba Ling Ho. Chapter 144. Chen Yuejuan, on the other hand, looked calm. Seeing Wu Wei's arrival, he could still say softly, "My child, I've really caused trouble for you this time." Wu Wei said a few polite words, turned around and said hello to Lu Hong, third aunt. Lu Hong didn't like hearing this title, so she nodded reluctantly and didn't respond. Then he caught a glimpse of his daughter, who didn't see Wu Wei's good demeanor at all, and felt that she had brought it upon herself. After all, he is his biological child, so who can blame him? Chiao Moli was completely unaware of all this. At this moment, she jumped back on the stone roller, waving and urging Chiao Kuliang, who had arrived late. Compared to Wu Wei, a child from other families who has suddenly risen to prominence, Chiao Kuliang is the same kind of person as her. Chiao Kuliang didn't know why Chiao Moli was so excited. Anyway, as soon as he arrived at the door of his house, he saw Chen Yuejuan's eyes turned red. The excuses that Chiao Kuliang was thinking about along the way were all stuck in his throat and he couldn't say them out. Ignoring Ma Jinbao's broken carriage, Chen Yuejuan knelt down with a plop. "Mom, if I make you worry, just hit me." Lu Hong and Chiao Moli quickly reached out to help. Especially Chiao Moli, she is still waiting to use Chiao Kuliang as her role model to work hard. "You, who returned home in fine clothes, don't have much glory. Why do you kneel down first when you see your family?" Wu Wei saw this and nodded secretly. He knew that Chiao Kuliang had done the right thing this time, and no words could be better than kneeling down. Sure enough, Chen Yuejuan said nothing and turned around and entered the yard. Just when he turned around, he secretly wiped away tears. When Chiao Kuliang saw this, he stood up with the help of Lu Hong and Chiao Moli. "I said hello to the two of them by the way." Lu Hong patted Chiao Kuliang and said, "Your parents have been worried a lot these days. Go back and admit your mistake to them in front of your third uncle." Before Chiao Kuliang could respond, Chiao Moli refused and said, "Why are you admitting your mistake, Mom? My brother is going out to make a lot of money and start a career, and he is not here to embarrass his fifth uncle and his fifth aunt. He was able to get to that place because the tree was big and attracted the wind, so he was tricked by someone. Dad also often said that a person who is not envied by others is a mediocre person. At least my brother is not a mediocre person, he is a talent. After saying that, Chiao Moli still asked Chiao Kuliang proudly, brother, right? A word with my daughter. Lu Hong was dumbfounded and didn't know where to start. He simply turned around and caught up with Chen Yuejuan, and went to help along with her. Chiao Kuliang was left with a sigh and said, I was indeed tricked, but not because I made a lot of money, but because I was too stupid to see the situation clearly. It's obvious to be able to say this. Chiao Kuliang thought about it a lot on his way back. Not only that, he also said to Wu Wei more and more calmly, he is the one who really makes big money. What I earn is not even a fraction of what he earns. Did you see that he entered the detention and deportation station? Did you see that he was beaten? None of them. That's why this is called skill. Chiao Moli was dumbfounded. At this moment, the last glimmer of hope in her heart was shattered. Not long after, Secretary Chiao came over first. Seeing that Chiao Kuliang had injuries on his face but nothing serious on his body, he slapped him on the shoulder several times. Just come back, just come back. He turned to Wu Wei and said, I've done a good job, and I can live happily in Shanghai. This is not easy. When he was praised like this, Wu Wei was tearing apart Huazi. After dismantling it, he immediately walked over and said, Old party secretary, you praise me too much. I just did a small favor, and the third brother didn't have much trouble to begin with. Secretary Chiao took over Huazi and said more and more pertinently, success will last forever. You will become a great person. Upon hearing these words, Chiao Moli, who had just entered the hospital, turned around and headed straight for Dehe. He caught Dehe and jerked him off hard. While he was licking, he was thinking angrily, why does everyone look at him so highly? Unfortunately, Dehe was not comfortable being spanked. He turned around and wanted to leave, but he couldn't. You can only lie down as low as possible, and then lower. Get rid of the opponent's hand that is neither light nor heavy. Wu Wei got angry at Party Secretary Chiao, and then said to himself, Old Party Secretary, don't give me a high hat. If anything happens, just give me orders. Actually, it's nothing, Secretary Chiao first fainted. Now that the Zishan brick kiln factory belongs to you, you have also started building the Lun kiln. When the kiln is opened next year, I'm afraid it will require a lot of manpower, right? Wu Wei nodded and said, that's natural. What arrangements do you have for these manpower? Once my brick kiln factory starts construction, it will immediately produce thousands of square meters of red bricks for the welfare housing of the cement factory. At that time, a lot of manpower will be needed, and I asked the old party secretary to help me coordinate. This was exactly what Secretary Chiao wanted. While Secretary Chiao smiled heartily, he also suddenly restrained himself and said, Are you serious about this? Wu Wei nodded without hesitation, of course it's true. That's okay, Secretary Chiao agreed immediately, you are Yu Yan's partner, so you are not an outsider. I will coordinate this matter, so don't worry. At this moment, Ma Haidao came over on a new car carrying his father Ma Jinbao. Apparently coming to get the car. But after returning to the car, since I saw my son's master and the old party secretary, I couldn't even say hello. He walked into the courtyard and said, Old party secretary, Boss Wu, are you all here? Wu Wei quickly threw a cigarette in his hand to Ma Jinbao to avoid the dilemma of whether he should take out the cheap cigarette in his pocket. Ma Jinbao held the cigarette in his arms and said, Boss Wu, since Haidao has recognized you as his master and has been busy for you, it is all right. How come you bought him a new car and gave him hundreds of dollars just for going to Shanghai with you? This is too bad. Wu Wei said repeatedly, "This is what Heidao deserves, don't stop him, old Ma." Party Secretary Jiao took a closer look. "Wow, isn't it a new car? Is it really as old Ma said, that he bought him a new car and hundreds of dollars just for going to Shanghai? This guy is quite generous, how much money must he have made?" At the same time, Chiao Moli, who was stroking Dehei, also heard this. She didn't envy the new car, but she envied the money. A new car plus 100 yuan in cash, at least 300 yuan. How much money must he have made to give his apprentice 300 yuan at once? Obviously, what Jiao Quiliang earned was not up to this level. Could it be that Jiao Quiliang was not forced to say that? But this guy who everyone looked up to, really made a lot of money. Ma Jinbei was so grateful that he was holding Huazi's hands, and they were shaking. At the beginning, he asked his son to worship Wu Wei as his teacher, just to make a living and find a way out. Unexpectedly, he would directly hug a golden thigh. He dared not think about the future, dared not think about it. Who would marry into the family after being reborn? Author, Ben Pao de Ba Ling Ho. Chapter 145. After taking a few puffs of cigarettes, Ma Jinbei took his son and rode away with two cars, a new one and an old one. Ma Heidao still rides a new horse, and the baby needs to be treated like a new wife and not allowed to be touched by his father. Seeing that everything was fine here, Wu Wei planned to leave. After all, the person has been delivered safely and his mission has been completed. As a result, Chiao Quiliang chased him out and said with a pale face, "You have delivered it, but I am not safe yet." Wu Wei was unmoved. "After all, whether you are safe or not is none of my business. If you have the time, wouldn't it be better to go find Xiao Yuyan?" At this moment, the master's wife, Chen Yuejuan, also grabbed a spoon and chased her out. "My child, don't leave, stay and eat." Speaking of this, I didn't forget to add, I'll call Xiaochun over later. Chen Yuejuan remembered it after mentioning it last time. Wu Wei could refuse Chiao Quiliang, but he really couldn't refuse his wife. Hearing this, he blurted out, "Master, I'm not leaving. I'm going to the kill to have a look, and I'll be back with Master later." Chen Yuejuan felt relieved, turned to Secretary Chiao, who was about to leave, and said, "Third brother, you will come over tonight." Secretary Chiao pointed at Wu Wei and said, "It's enough for Xiao Wu to be here alone." The implication is that there is no need to stop Lao Wu by himself. A moment later, Zishan Brick Kill Factory. As soon as Wu Wei appeared, Master Chiao knew full well that the unfilial son was back. But when the master and apprentice met and started smoking, fifth Master Chiao didn't even mention it. Fourth Master Chiao, who was still on the side, came over and asked in a meaningful way, "Are you all back?" Wu Wei handed over another flower and nodded. Then the conversation among the three people shifted to the Lun Kill project in front of them. After 10 days of busy work, the road from the brick kill to the village road is completely completed. Consider that the entire brick kill factory is still under construction. At present, this section of the road is still just a rough road covered with gravel and broken bricks. After the brick kill is completed, we will consider pouring cement or paving asphalt. As for the brick kill factory, the ground has been leveled. The area reserved for the 54-door wheel kill has also been marked out with lime, and the foundation pit is currently being excavated. After seeing what happened, Mr. Chiao mused, "It's getting colder and colder as we go forward. If there's another heavy snowfall, it'll be good if we can finish the foundation here." Wu Wei thought, "No, today is the second day of the 12th lunar month. In previous years, work has been suspended before this time. The brick kill factory's work has exceeded expectations so far." At the moment, he did not put any pressure on the master and said, "Do as much as you want. This matter should not be rushed." After seeing what was going on at the scene, Wu Wei said hello to a few more senior brothers and handed them a cigarette. As a result, several senior brothers were inquiring about Jiao Kuliang's situation. Wu Wei didn't say much, but just invited He Jiang, elder brother, why don't you go to master's house for a while and help persuade him? He Jiang shook his head decisively like a rattle and said, as long as you are here, it will be fine. If you can, do more work. In a blink of an eye, it's time to get off work. Wu Wei waited silently for master and fourth master to finish their preparations and ride back together. As a result, fifth master Chiao discovered that Wu Wei was going back in the same direction with him, so he asked, you haven't seen Yu Yan since you came back, right? Who says it's not? Wu Wei also wanted to see Yu Yan. After all, there were gifts for Yu Yan in the car. Seeing Wu Wei nod, fifth master Chiao further urged, then you go, you don't have to follow me. Wu Wei had no idea. Then fourth master Chiao interrupted, my child has worked so hard for your family, and he doesn't even give him a drink. What are you asking for? If you really don't want to give it, I will. Mr. Chiao's mood finally exploded, get out of here. Despite this, fourth master still protected Wu Wei all the way back to the Chiao family compound. As soon as the three people entered the courtyard gate, the pressure in the yard suddenly became low. Chiao Kuliang, who had smiled before, was immediately frightened into silence. Even Dehe, who was lying on his side, felt something was wrong in the atmosphere and hid in the kennel with his tail between his legs. Seeing Wu Wei signaled. Chiao Kuliang finally moved, stumbled over, and knelt down towards fifth master Chiao, Dad, I was wrong. As a result, fifth master Chiao refused to accept this trick. He lifted his legs, picked up the shoes on his feet, and whipped Chiao Kuliang's face away. Wu Wei quickly reached out to hug his master and pulled him back. Fourth master Chiao also stopped him in front with quick eyes and hands, so that the huazi he just held in his mouth fell to the ground. You still have the nerve to come back. You were sent to the asylum, and my face has completely embarrassed you. Thanks to Wu Wei's tallness and strength, it was easy to hold fifth master Chiao back. But as a father, the power he can unleash when he is furious is unimaginable. Just dragging and holding her like this is not a problem. So Wu Wei quickly explained, Master, this is not entirely the third brother's responsibility. He was also framed. After all, he was facing a circle of people practicing Qigong, numbering dozens of people. How could he do it alone? Can you beat others? Upon hearing this, Master Chiao's anger was relieved a lot. Fourth Master Chiao even tooted, where are the dozens of people? No one else can do it? Wu Wei continued, besides, Master, after the third brother asked for the money back, he didn't even want to spend a penny on himself. He bought all the gifts for you. Chen Yuejuan, who was cooking in the kitchen, rushed out and heard this, and immediately forgave her son completely. But Master Chiao Wu asked clearly, wait, you just said that the other party had dozens of people, so how did he get the money back? Wu Wei chattered. He was busy talking to Chiao Kuliang, but he didn't expect that he would say it later. Master Chiao Wu became more and more excited and said, even if you and Heidao are included, there are only 3 of you. How can you fight against dozens of people on the other side? Chiao Kuliang saw that Wu Wei was not easy to say, so he said boldly, Dad, it's all his credit. As soon as he arrived at the park, all the people who practiced Qigong there regarded him as a master, and asked him questions about Qigong. Later, the fake master who swallowed the money saw the situation and was afraid that he would rob his foundation and position, so he asked us to have a meal to apologize and finally pay the money. This is it. It sounds strange. Fourth Master Chiao laughed out loud, I didn't expect you to be a Qigong master. Wu Wei waved his hands repeatedly, I went to Shanghai to exchange treasury bonds last time, but I couldn't find a way out. I had to make up an identity to try to find a way out. Who knew they believed it so easily? Not only did they believe it, but they recognized me when I went there this time. After Wu Wei finished speaking, Chiao Kuliang immediately thanked him. Thanks to his identity, it helped a lot, otherwise, I would have worked hard for a month and finally earned that little money, and I really couldn't get it back. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Who would marry into the family after being reborn? Author, Ben Pao de Ba Ling Ho. Chapter 146. After this interruption, most of Chiao Wei's anger disappeared immediately. Finally, it fell on Chiao Kuliang, who was just kicked. Chiao Kuliang fell to the ground. His anger was completely gone. Wu Wei then helped the man up and urged him, "Hurry up and take a look at the gift you brought back." But fourth master Chiao said to Chen Yuejuan without saying anything, "Brothers and sisters, if you bother me tonight, I have to come and join in the fun." Xiao Wu went out for a trip. This experience is really wonderful. I have to listen carefully. By the way, I will third brother also called. Chen Yuejuan smiled brightly and said, "Fourth brother, look at what you said, are you a heretic?" Ask the fourth sister-in-law, the third sister-in-law, and Jasmine to come together. So the people who came to have dinner quickly filled the table. Even so, Chen Yuejuan did not forget to ask Jasmine to go to the village department to call Xiaochun and Gang Feng. As a result, both of them said they were too busy to come. When Chen Yuejuan saw this, she wanted to take action herself. But Wu Wei stopped him and said, "Master's wife, let them be busy. We'll talk about it next time." Fourth Master Chiao even helped. "Yes, the furniture over there is also Xiao Wu's business, and the construction schedule is tight." Soon, the 8 Immortals table was set up in the main room. Due to the large number of people, a large round table was placed on the 8 Immortals table. It suddenly felt much more spacious. Then Lu Hong helped Chen Yuejuan carry it from the kitchen to the main room. In just one afternoon, the master's wife prepared so many dishes without saying a word. It is not inferior to the standard of ordinary banquets in the village. Mr. Chiao Wu even personally brought out 2 bottles of Maotai, not forgetting the gifts bought by his son and saying, "Why did you buy me that foreign language lighter? It's not as practical as these 2 bottles of Maotai." Secretary Chiao quickly asked, "What kind of lighter in foreign language?" Then he took it from Master Chiao and took a look. "Isn't this the same as Xiao Wu's lighter?" Wu Wei didn't know if it was different. Anyway, among the many gifts Chiao Kuliang brought back, this imported lighter was indeed the most expensive. Wu Wei took the Maotai from his master and began to pour wine for everyone. Secretary Chiao put down the lighter and couldn't wait to ask, "The fourth child just said that you guys had a legendary experience in Shanghai this time. Tell me, what legendary thing happened?" As a person involved, Wu Wei really couldn't put money on his face again. Chiao Kuliang had no such scruples and immediately started talking vividly. Especially when it comes to the scene where Wu Wei is in the park, the imitation is even more exaggerated, and he looks like a magic stick. Wu Wei didn't point it out either. Anyway, it's just for fun, there's no need to be so serious. Chiao Moli, on the other hand, looked complicated. He was obviously very curious and wanted to listen, but he had to pretend to be dismissive. But with this incident as seasoning. After eating this meal, not only did Chiao Kuliang's risks all disappear, but the atmosphere became extremely relaxed and happy. After having enough wine and food, it was already past the time for the news broadcast. Wu Wei pushed up the 28th big bar to say goodbye. Chiao Kuliang chased him out and thrust a set of Yashuang's cosmetics to Wu Wei and said, "I won't go to Yuyan's place to send it away. You can help me bring it to her." Wu Wei joked, "Aren't you afraid that I will say that I bought all these?" Qiao Kuliang said without hesitation, "You are not that kind of person." Then he looked into Wu Wei's eyes and said sincerely, "Finally, I have to say, thank you for everything this time." Wu Wei waved his hand, got in the car and left. When we passed the village headquarters, the lights inside had gone out. It seems that the third sister Xiaochun and Ma Ling have gone back to their respective homes. Wu Wei kept walking. When he passed by the fence yard, he turned down and took a look. The old and new chicken pens in the fenced yard are all tightly closed. It can be seen that Xiaochun never forgets to go there every night. When we left the fence yard, there was already a layer of white frost on the ground. The temperature dropped immediately. It looks like it's going to be freezing tomorrow morning. The whole journey was non-stop, and when Wu Wei arrived at the county, he was welcoming students to finish their self-study classes in the evening. Students came out of the classroom in groups. Some went straight to the dormitory area, and some went straight to the school gate. Wu Wei waited for a while and then saw Qiao Yuyan coming out with the thin Zishun in her arms, discussing study matters as they walked. "I saw my second brother appear." Zishun was overjoyed at first, but when the words came to his lips, he said with a clear eye, "Then you guys talk first, I'll go home first." Wu Wei smiled and said, "What are you going to say?" "Wait for me to go together." After saying that, she hugged Qiao Yuyan who was coming over and said, "Kuliang is back with all his hair and tail, and the master kicked him without getting angry." Just now at dinner, the old party secretary and the fourth master were there, so it should be it's okay. What he said made others confused. But Qiao Yuyan, who knows the inside story well, has a clear mind. "Thank you for traveling so hard and being tired for so many days." Wu Wei waved his hand and took out the set of Yashuan cosmetics. Qiao Yuyan immediately said happily, "You bought it for me? I like it so much." Wu Wei shook his head, "This is bought by Kuliang. I asked me to bring it to you, just to reassure you." Qiao Yuyan raised her lips slightly, "Then I'll treat it as yours." Then Wu Wei took out another bag and said, "He bought it for himself. What he bought cannot replace what I bought." Seeing this bag, Qiao Yuyan was surprised and satisfied, and she couldn't wait to open it on the spot. As a result, Wu Wei grabbed the bag and stopped her, "Let's go back and look." Qiao Yuyan blushed, as if she had thought of something, "Okay." Wu Wei raised his hand, "Then Zishun and I will go back first." "Well, I'll take you there." "Don't take me there. Just to the school gate." So Qiao Yuyan took the brother and sister to the gate, and only turned back to the dormitory with a sense of unsatisfaction until they got on the bike and left. Back to the dormitory, she couldn't wait to open the bag and took a look, and her face immediately blushed to her neck. But blushing is blushing. As a woman, Qiao Yuyan couldn't help but be curious about how fashionable Shanghai women are. As a result, she couldn't stop after trying it. On the way back, Zishun had already ridden the bike very skillfully. Not only that, she could even reach out to Wu Wei while riding, "Second brother, where is my gift?" Wu Wei smiled, only when Xiaochun was not there did she dare to ask for it so blatantly. "Don't worry, you can't do without them. They are all at home." "Humph, that's more like it," Zishun said, and then took credit for herself and said, "After all, my role in your relationship with Sister Yuyan cannot be ignored." This little mouth is so chattering, knowing how to flatter herself. It seems that her personality is much more cheerful. This is a good thing. Wu Wei is happy to see it happen, and he didn't refute it. But he took the opportunity to encourage, "As long as you study hard, your second brother will need your gifts in the future." Who would marry into the family after being reborn? Author, Ben Pao de Ba Ling Ho. Chapter 147. Return to the Bai Road courtyard. Xiaochun has just roasted some sweet potatoes, exuding an attractive fragrance. Although this day in the Gregorian calendar year is not considered a festival, it is still regarded as a gateway. This marks the official arrival of 1987. Wu Wei ate sweet potatoes and told about his harvest. The two sisters were a bit used to it. After all, they have already seen the income of 100,000 yuan from the meat processing plant project. Although the income this time was large, it did not exceed this figure. Zishun, on the other hand, ate sweet potatoes and scalded his lips and said, "Brother, third sister, how about our family buy a TV? Yao Mei wants to follow the trend and watch TV." Wu Wei thought it was no problem, especially since he could afford it now, and it would be a long-faced decoration at home. He said, "Okay." Unexpectedly, Xiaochun objected, "Watching TV affects learning, what kind of TV should I buy?" This is heading straight for Zishun. Zishun had no choice but to look at his second brother Wu Wei for help. Wu Wei smiled and said, "This is easy to handle. When the time comes, I will ask the fourth master to build a TV cabinet and put the TV in it. The key is in your hands. You can show it to me whenever you ask." Xiaochun took a step back, "Then we have to wait until the end of the semester and see her results. Today is the second day of the 12th lunar month. As we speak, the Chinese New Year is approaching. Zishun this semester can only last until the 15th day of the 12th lunar month at most." After Wu Wei thought about it, he turned around and put the pressure on Yao Mei Zishun and said, "It's up to you." The next day, Friday, Wu Wei arrived at the Zishun brick kiln factory. The road surface in the morning was freezing and hard, and it didn't gradually soften until about 10 o'clock. While talking to fourth master and master, they both breathed out. Work on the lun kiln is starting one after another, but the progress is really not going fast. When the fourth master saw this, he was particularly disgusted and said, "If you ask me, just stop working and wait until the spring comes." Master Chiao Wei had other considerations. "Don't say that bricks will be available for the cement factory after the new year. Even if construction starts at the same time, the manpower will not be as sufficient as it is now. So it is only one more day to work." As a result, we just had lunch and it was afternoon. Snowflakes like goose feathers floated in the sky, flying one after another. If we don't stop work now, we have to stop work. In desperation, Master Chiao called on everyone to work on the existing foundation and lay it in a meadow. Then with a wave of his hand, everyone dispersed. Looking back, I saw Wu Wei calling Pan Kaizai over and explaining everything. The burden of watching the scene has returned to his shoulders. In front of the fourth master and the fifth master, Pan Kaizai's expression was shaky, and he didn't even straighten his waist. He nodded and bowed and said, "No problem, I'll cover it." After explaining Pan Kaizai, fourth master Chiao stretched his waist and said, "It's better now. I can concentrate on watching Gang Feng and the others making furniture." However, fifth master Chiao glanced in the direction of Qin Ziru's house and said, "You and Fatty Joe's house, it's best to say hello." This was for Pan Kaizai, so he was a little worried. Wu Wei nodded and said, "Okay, master. You go back and calculate the salary for the past half month. I will get the money for you later and pay it to everyone before the year." "I know," fifth master Chiao agreed, pushed the car and followed fourth master's footsteps and said, "Let's go first. Send off fourth master and master." Wu Wei took out his cigarette, glanced at Pan Kaizai who was fishing alone in Hanjiangxiu, then turned and walked towards Qin Ziru's house. When he reached the door, he coughed lightly. Qin Ziru, who was in the yard and hurriedly packing things in the house, suddenly said overjoyed, "Boss Wu, you are here, please come to the house quickly." Wu Wei looked a little strange. "I'm here for a visit. Why are you so happy?" "Hopefully it's just habitual enthusiasm." After entering the main room, I looked up and saw Fatty Joe on the wall, smiling like a tiger. Next to him, Fatty Joe's second son, Joe Ching, was smacking the toffee in his hand with runny nose. The tender flesh on both cheeks was chapped by the cold. At first glance, it seems that he cries a lot. Chinziru hurriedly made a cup of tea and brought it over, then hurriedly went back to the house to find cigarettes to entertain. Wu Wei quickly stopped her and said, "Stop working so hard. I'll come over and tell you something. I'll leave as soon as I'm done." Despite this, Wu Wei still picked up the cup of hot tea and warmed his palms. Chinziru, who was called back, sat on the chair with half of the big millstone. "If you have anything to do, just say it, Boss Wu." Wu Wei watched the heavy snow outside the door becoming more and more dense, and it was so dense that it blocked his sight. "You have also seen that the construction work of the brick kiln factory may not be carried out years ago. I sent Panchesa to look at the site, but he is alone, and it is inevitable that there will be oversights. So I would like to ask you to help me too. Keep an eye on it." At this point, Chinziru said decisively, "No problem, Boss Wu. I will also have to rely on this kiln to work in the coming year. The kiln's affairs are my business. And the road built by the kiln has also helped me. Very busy. This time after the snow melts, I don't have to worry anymore." Chinziru said a lot in one breath. After finishing speaking, he glanced at Wu Wei cautiously, fearing that Wu Wei would become impatient. Wu Wei saw it and felt quite subtle. So when she looked at Chinziru, she couldn't help but laugh. This smile made Chinziru's heart tremble. The feeling of being seen through and seen by others came again. Fortunately, the next moment, Wu Wei finished his glass of water, put away his smile, stood up and said, "Let's go." Chinziru clamped her legs, stood up, caught up with him, and sent him out the door. Zhou Qing, who was behind him, accidentally dropped the candy in his hand and burst into tears. Even so, she ignored him. She sent Wu Wei out of the gate and said, "Boss Wu, these ponds have caught a lot of big fish. If you have time before the new year, you can bring people to clean them all up." Wu Wei nodded and accepted it happily, saying, "You reminded me. These ponds originally belonged to the assets of the brick kiln factory. The fish in them belong to the boss Wu Wei, no problem." While talking, he ran straight to the straw shed next to him, pushed the 28-inch bicycle, turned around and said, "Let's go back." Chinziru still stood in the heavy snow, letting the snowflakes fall on her body without moving, and said, "Boss Wu, walk slowly." Riding the 28-inch bicycle, he went down the road of the brick kiln factory, turned to the village road, and went straight to the village office. When he arrived at the village office, a thin layer of snow had accumulated in the yard of the village office. But in the large open room of the village office, the electric planer was still roaring and working in full swing. Not affected by the heavy snow outside at all. Wu Wei glanced at his third sister, and then gave a circle of cigarettes to Chiao Gangfeng and other carpenters, and then returned to the Chiao family compound. At the master's house, Chiao Kuliang returned to his old carefree appearance. It was snowing heavily, but he was only wearing bell-bottom pants and jeans. He would rather shiver with cold, and his bangs would shiver with him. He was unwilling to wear a cotton jacket or coat. Chen Yuejuan, who felt sorry for him yesterday, began to disdain him today. "You might as well work outside, I won't be bothered if I don't see you." The remaining 2 chapters will be posted later. I'm writing. Who would marry into the family after being reborn? Author, Ben Pao de Ba Ling Ho. Chapter 148. Wu Wei greeted his master's wife and entered the main hall. He saw his master, Master Chiao Wei, squatting at a small square table, wearing reading glasses, checking accounts and calculating wages. Wu Wei handed him a cigarette, and Master Chiao Wei raised his head and said, "Come on, sit down." Then he held the fire handed over by Wu Wei, lit a cigarette, and threw the pencil head. "After the snow, we have to stay at home until the new year." Wu Wei understood. After all, it was the 12th lunar month. Even if the snow melted and the temperature rose, people could not be called back. First, they could not work for a few days before the new year. Second, there were many exchanges and things to do in the village during the days before the new year. What is the purpose of working hard all year round? Isn't it just to enjoy a few days of peace and quiet during the new year? Wu Wei was quite open-minded. Don't worry, master. There will always be a way out when the car reaches the mountain. There is always a solution. Besides, if you compare it with last year and the year before, this year's situation. Hearing this, Master Chiao Wu finally laughed. If you compare it this way, it's really much better. We rural people have never had a decent way out. This year, I ask you to run out of a smooth road. Seeing that the master was happy, Wu Wei did not take credit. Master, without me, this way out will be found sooner or later by someone else. Master Chiao Wu said with a stern face, how can it be the same? While talking, Chiao Kuliang came over. What are you talking about? You are so happy. Master Chiao Wu was immediately furious and said, if you have nothing to do, go to the kill factory to look after the site. Don't stay at home all day to bother me. Chiao Kuliang did not dare to be stubborn. He could only spread his hands to Wu Wei and said, you've seen it, right? Anyway, no matter what I do, I'm an eyesore to them. Wu Wei's heart moved, and he turned to ask Master Chiao Wu, Master, how about I give third brother an idea? Without waiting for Master Chiao Wu to respond, Chiao Kuliang came over excitedly, tell me quickly, what's your idea? I'm bored at home. Seeing that the master didn't object, Wu Wei continued, I see that there are a lot of high-end furniture in the village office. Third brother, you can find a photographer to take pictures of these furniture and make a special album. Then take these albums and go to the city to sell them and get orders. When you get the orders, let the carpenter team of the fourth master do it. When Chiao Kuliang heard this, he immediately patted his chest and said, I happen to have a few friends who run photo studios, and dealing with people is my strong point. After patting his chest, he said shamelessly, what's the benefit for me? Without waiting for Wu Wei to answer, Chiao Wei was about to hit him with his shoe solace and said, you want benefits in everything. Is there any honesty? Wu Wei stopped his master and said without evasion, 2 points as your commission. Chiao Kuliang's eyes lit up. I heard that the furniture made by the fourth uncle was sold at a high price. 2 points may not seem high, but you can actually get a lot. It's the same as Chin Ziru's commission at the brick kill factory, which is mainly based on quantity. As if he was afraid that his father Chiao Wei would object, Chiao Kuliang immediately said, okay, I'll do it. Chiao Wei glanced at him and said nothing. Wu Wei continued, then it's settled. Come and ask me to reimburse you for the money you spent on taking photos and making albums. The Chiao Wei and his wife glared at each other. It's just a small amount of money, is it worth reimbursing? Wu Wei insisted, whatever happens, it will be, master. Chiao Kuliang spread his hands and said directly, anyway, I don't have a penny. Dad, if you are willing to give it to me, I don't care. Wu Wei smiled and exposed, Master, if you really give it to him, he will still ask me to reimburse you in the future, do you believe it? Chiao Wei nodded in agreement when he heard it. Chiao Kuliang looked frustrated. After all, he almost succeeded. After saying this, Wu Wei gave his master another huazi, got up and went out. Seeing this, Chen Yuejuan hurried over to persuade him, it's time for dinner, stay for dinner. Wu Wei waved his hand and said, Master's wife, it's still early, I'll go home and take a look. Leaving the Chiao family compound, Wu Wei rode his bike straight to the fenced courtyard. The snow on the gravel road was half a finger deep, and the wheels might slip a little. Fortunately, the road was not far away, and Wu Wei pedaled hard and arrived. The ground in the fenced yard was already white. There were many footprints on it from the chickens and ducks in the yard, and even the chicken and duck feces were covered. Wu Wei was not careful and got his feet wet. He broke a branch from the kitchen and sat at the door of the main hall to pick the wheat. The wheat fields in the distance gradually turned white. After cleaning his shoes, Wu Wei went back to the house and grabbed a handful of rice and scattered it on the snow. The chickens and ducks that were originally strolling around the yard ran over to enjoy this feast. Wu Wei was about to take the opportunity to catch a duck and bring it back to the county to supplement his youngest sister's nutrition and prepare for the final exam. Suddenly, a shout from outside the yard scared away the duck that was about to be caught. "Boss Wu, Boss Wu." When Wu Wei heard the voice, he knew that there was no one else except Dongda. When the newcomer came through the gap in the fence and went around to the main gate. Sure enough, it was Dongda. "What's the matter? Why are you so loud?" Dongda walked straight into the main hall door, stamped his feet, and then went in and grabbed a stool to sit opposite Wu Wei. One on the left and one on the right, just like two door gods. "Take the cigarette," Wu Wei threw over, and shamelessly asked for a lighter, then said, "Kill the pig. Didn't I ask you for it every year? How about I leave you a pig's front leg when the time comes?" Wu Wei was stunned. It was true. "When?" "Tomorrow." "Okay," Wu Wei agreed immediately. There was nothing to do in the snow, so come if you want. But he quickly asked, "When I pump water from the fish pond to catch fish, you have to help me." Dongda was stunned. "The question is, where did you get the fish pond?" Wu Wei said confidently, "There are several fish ponds in the Zishan brick kill factory." "Yes," Dongda suddenly realized, "the brick kill factory is all yours, so the ponds naturally belong to you." Then he recalled, "In the summer, the damn fatty Joe didn't let people fish and chased me away." Wu Wei laughed, but didn't say anything. After finishing a cigarette, he refilled it, but he didn't let him smoke it. He said, "Help me, catch that duck." So the two of them were in the yard, and there was a lot of chickens flying and ducks jumping. Finally, the duck was caught. Wu Wei took a moment to weigh it, and it was quite fat. He touched the duck's belly and it seemed to have duck eggs. If Xiao-chun knew this, she would definitely not want to kill it, and keep the eggs to pickle salted duck eggs. After finishing all this, Dongda left a message, "You must come tomorrow," and left in a hurry. In that way, he was afraid that Wu Wei would draft another strong man. Wu Wei also pulled a straw rope, tied the duck, tied it to the back seat, turned around, locked the door, stepped on the 28-inch bicycle, and headed straight to the county yard. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Who would marry into the family after being reborn? Author, Ben Pao de Ba Ling Ho. Chapter 149. Return to the Bai Road courtyard. Wu Wei found an axe and gave the duck a hard time. Then he used the hot water simmering on the briquette stove to pluck the hair directly, and finally even used a vise. The main focus is meticulous. Sweep the duck feathers into a pile and let it be covered with snow. Wu Wei turned around and was in the main room, simmering old duck soup on the 3-burner briquette stove. Wait until you add water and sprinkle with pepper. Wu Wei remembered the photo Chiao asked him to bring back to the old lady yesterday, so he took it out and looked at it. After seeing the result, I was reluctant to give it to the old lady. By the time a pot of old duck soup is simmering, the rice on the other single-burner briquette stove is also steaming. Zishan pushed open the door and entered the courtyard despite the heavy snow. When I first entered the yard, my nose looked like a dog's. "Wow, second brother, what are you cooking for?" Fortunately, I gritted my teeth and came back. Ordinarily, with this weather, Zishan's pocket money can be spent eating a bowl of noodles at the school gate. As a result, this girl came back out of habit. It can be seen that this deep-rooted habit of saving has not changed. It's precisely because it hasn't changed that I caught up with this hot, freshly cooked duck soup. Wu Wei served it and said, "Authentic yam and old duck pot, I'll give you some extra food, so you can get good grades in the exam later." Zishun washed her hands and eagerly reached out to take the bowl from Wu Wei's hand. Wu Wei moved the bowl aside and said, "This is not for you, by the way, get me a lid." Zishun said oh and handed over a pot lid. Wu Wei pursed his lips and said, "Shen yourself." Then he stepped out and De Wang followed him until he reached the door. Only then did I realize that this bowl of old duck pot had nothing to do with it. So he returned to the door of the hall, shook the snowflakes off his body, and then walked in and stood in front of Zishun, waiting eagerly to pick up the leak. Pushing open the door of the small courtyard next door, there was a heavy creaking sound. It seems that this door latch needs some oil and lubrication. These are small things, but in the house of a lonely old lady, they are considered big things. If no one thinks about it, a little will add up, and there will be problems everywhere. When Xiao Hui heard the sound, he jumped from lying down to standing up, then recognized Wu Wei and ran over. Around Wu Wei's right leg, King Qin circled the pillar. All of them have grown up, but their problems have not changed yet. As a result, Wu Wei kicked him away, and then he walked into the main room. The old lady was sitting on the sofa in the main room, with a blanket still covering her legs. The whole person looked very old, and seemed to be much older than the last time he saw him. Wu Wei frowned. It shouldn't be like this. This old lady has a lot of plans and is only in her early 70s. Why is she so old? Ms. Zhao raised her eyebrows slightly and was not surprised at all when she saw it was Wu Wei. After all, in this home, apart from the fact that the work unit will send people over during the holidays, on weekdays, only a few young people from next door come over. Ms. Zhao smelled the fragrance of the old duck pot, but she still said stubbornly, "If you give me those weird candies again, I won't want them." Wu Wei put the old duck pot on the coffee table between the two single seats, and pushed an object covered by a dry towel. Only then did he suddenly realize, phone. Ms. Zhao turned her head and raised her chin, feeling quite proud. Wu Wei put down the big bowl in his hand and said without hesitation, "Then I will just leave your phone number here." With that said, he opened the lid of the pot, and the aroma of the old duck came to his face. And looked closely at the color of the soup, pure white and rich. Ms. Zhao originally wanted to bury him, but for the sake of the bowl of soup, she held back. Seeing this, Wu Wei got up to find chopsticks and washed them while he was there. But when he came back, he saw the old lady licking her lips secretly. Drinking soup secretly? It's burnt. Then he handed the chopsticks to the old lady and said, "Thanks to me, it has cooled down a lot when I brought it here. Otherwise, you will definitely get a big blister on your tongue." Ms. Zhao couldn't care less about arguing with him. He took the chopsticks, picked up a piece of duck meat that was stewed until tender, and started eating. Wu Wei took the opportunity to look around and said, "You said you are at home every day and have nothing to do, and people age quickly. Why not, when my brick kiln factory opens next year, you can work as a general ledger and accountant for me there and use your spare energy. Such a large brick kiln factory needs a reliable accountant. If you find someone else, you still have to pay a salary. Looking for Ms. Zhao, he can even." Of course, Wu Wei just thought about this idea. Asking Ms. Zhao to come forward, the main thing is to reassure her. Ms. Zhao seemed to be eating happily and did not object the whole time. Wu Wei understood and said, "Okay, then I'll take it as your promise. If you don't agree, how can you eat every drop of a bowl of old duck soup?" In the past, the meals sent by the third sister Xiaochun were not treated so well. Wu Wei put away the bowls and chopsticks, turned around and sat back down. Ms. Zhao looked surprised and thought to herself, "Why don't you leave?" Wu Wei took out a stack of Qiao's photos from his pocket and said, "This is what Qiao asked me to bring to you. I was reluctant to part with it at first, but because you are willing to give me some of your spare energy, I give them all to you." Ms. Zhao couldn't wait to take it, but she couldn't see clearly. Directing Wu Wei, "Turn on the lights, turn on the big lights." Wu Wei got up and turned on all the lights in the main room. When he turned around, he saw the old lady holding Qiao's photo, having fun there. Qiao also knows now that she makes money by doing accounts for others. "But don't worry, I'll still give her 1,000 yuan before I leave this time. Don't stare at me like that. I think it's not a bad thing for Qiao to work as an accountant and earn some pocket money. Just like for you, it's better to work in my kill factory and exercise your body instead of doing nothing and letting your mind and body degenerate." After seeing the photo, Ms. Zhao was so happy, but she said, "Capitalist." Wu Wei picked up the bowl and pot cover without any concern and said, "I'll take it as your compliment." After that, he went back to his own yard. At 12 o'clock, when Xiaochun came back, she saw her second brother at home, flipping through the newspaper, bored. Suddenly, the idea of buying a TV was somewhat loosened. Whether Zishun watched it or not was secondary. The key is that the second brother had nothing to do at home. But before she could say anything, Wu Wei called out to Xiang Hui, who had come back with him, "Don't leave yet. I've made some duck stew. Have a bowl to warm yourself up before you go back." Xiaochun lifted the lid of the pot and saw that there were still some unformed duck eggs. She was immediately distressed and said, "It would be great to keep them for laying eggs." Xiang Hui drooled as he looked at it and said, "Don't feel sorry, Xiaochun. I'll catch one from home tomorrow and give you a replacement." Xiaochun said unhappily, "Do you want me to make up for it?" Then she rolled up her sleeves and began to serve soup and rice. Wu Wei also comforted her, "Don't feel sorry after you eat it. I'll have to clean up the ponds at the brick kill factory in a while. I'll make fish soup for you then." Who would marry into the family after being reborn? Author, Ben Pao de Ba Ling Ho. Chapter 150. The snow had been falling intermittently all night. The next morning, January 3rd, Wu Wei woke up and looked out the window. The sky and the earth were almost completely white. In the outer room, the two sisters had already gotten up and were talking in a low voice, afraid of waking up Wu Wei, the second brother. But the faint smell of rice drifted in through the crack of the door, making people salivate. Wu Wei got up and dressed, washed up briefly, then picked up a shovel and shoveled the snow in the yard. De Huang followed behind him and jumped here and there, leaving a dog-head-shaped snow nest. Wu Wei shoveled all the way to the gate and still didn't stop. Along the alley, he shoveled out the road in front of his house, and then shoveled to the next yard. Old Ms. Zhao seemed to have gotten up early. At this moment, the stove was still simmering and a pot of sticky lean meat porridge was cooked. The old lady seemed to be silent. She knew how to eat more and was more generous than the third sister Xiaochun. Wu Wei deliberately leaned over and sniffed fiercely. But Ms. Zhao was like a child, guarding him and said, "Don't come over here. This is not enough for me alone." Wu Wei nodded, "You'd better eat more, otherwise I'm afraid I won't have the energy to look through the accounts of my kill factory." Ms. Zhao glanced at him and said nothing. But in her heart, she secretly discovered. Since eating a big bowl of old duck stew last night, she did have some signs of a big appetite. It's not that this is all the credit of the old duck stew. But the capitalist attitude of this kid completely stimulated her physical function and fighting spirit. Wu Wei cleared the road in the old lady's yard and turned back to his own home. At this time, Zishun was already dressed properly, straddling the 26-kun car, ready to go. Wu Wei asked worriedly, "Can you do it? If not, I'll take you there." Zishun said confidently, "Don't worry, you and your third sister can ride 20 or 30 miles, I'm only riding 2 or 3 kilometers, what's wrong with that? Wu Wei nodded, okay, if you slip, don't cry, just get up by yourself. Zishan was unhappy, who are you looking down on? Zishan left. Wu Wei and Xiaochun had breakfast together, then each pushed out the bike and headed straight for Daowen village. On the way, Xiaochun breathed out the hot air and couldn't help but said distressedly, it's rare that the kill can't start work. Second brother, you said it would be great if you could rest at home, why do you have to run to the countryside? As she said that, she complained to Dongda, this brother Dong is really something, it's just a pig slaughter, why bother you when you can't ask anyone else? Wu Wei smiled and said, this is an old relationship, it's hard to refuse. But I promise that I won't do much today, just watch. Xiaochun didn't say anything, and this was the only way for now. Then he asked, brother, I estimate that the first batch of furniture will be delivered in about a week. Tell me, should I pay the wages then or wait until the Chinese New Year? Wu Wei said indifferently, it's all right. But if I pay now, Xiaochun thought, the newly joined Xiao's sister-in-law and Zhang's sister really don't have much money, it's a bit difficult to deal with. Then pay before the New Year. Xiaochun hummed and thought to herself, if it's before the New Year, maybe we can get another batch of furniture. It will be easier to pay it then. After saying that, Xiaochun turned her head and said, brother, you still have a way. Wu Wei couldn't help laughing. You figured it out by yourself. How can I help? All the way to the intersection of the fence yard. The brother and sister separated. Wu Wei turned back to the fence yard, and Xiaochun went straight to the village office along the village road. After returning to the fence yard, Wu Wei looked at the footprints on the snow as usual. My goodness, did Wang Tai-sin treat his yard as a dance floor? All the footprints were of Wang Tai-sin. Of course, there were also some smaller and more fragmented footprints, which were obviously mice. Could it be that Wang Tai-sin couldn't catch Kun Kun last night, so he could only attack the Mickeys who came out to look for food? Wu Wei studied it and felt that it was very likely. Then he picked up a shovel and shoveled the snow. Halfway through the snow shoveling, the roosters in the chicken coop couldn't hold back and kept crowing. Wu Wei had to sprinkle 2 bowls of rice on the ground before opening both chicken coops. He cleared the snow in the fenced yard in one breath, and then drove the road from the gate of the fenced yard to the village road before he stopped. Wu Wei lit a cigarette and listened carefully. From the direction of the Dong family in the west, he could faintly hear the howling of the second brother. He guessed that the second brother had been controlled. He decisively locked the door, pushed the car, and ran straight over, following the tire tracks left by others on the road. Wu Wei kicked a few times and arrived at the door of the Dong family. As a result, the first few people who arrived were chasing and blocking the protagonist of today, the second brother. Wu Wei stopped the car and asked, and then he found out. He had clearly caught him just now, but the second brother broke free and ran away. This time he had to toss and turn. Unfortunately, it was useless to toss and turn. No matter what, the second brother would not see the sun tomorrow. Not long after, the second brother was pressed on the chopping board again. The roars became louder and louder, shorter and more sharp. But it was useless. Accompanied by a knife, stabbing straight into the throat. Wu Wei grabbed the butcher knife and gave it a good time. Seeing this, Dong Da's father, Dong Quezi, couldn't help but give a thumbs up, and others also praised, fast, accurate and ruthless, worthy of being a boss. Second senior brother disappeared in a flash. Wu Wei was also freed from the work behind. Dong Quezi came over and looked like he was going to give Wu Wei a cigarette. But Wu Wei got the better of him and took a good cigarette. Then he said cautiously, since your father was still alive, our two families have had a history. You know this, right? Wu Wei smiled and said, Uncle Dong, if you have anything to say, just say it. I know it. It's like this. You are now a boss. Uncle just has something to ask for your opinion. Uncle Dong, you say. The eldest brother has been single for so many years. It is impossible for him to find a partner in our rural area. So I thought about finding him a barbarian wife. Do you think it will work? Wu Wei couldn't help laughing. In his previous life, the eldest brother Dong did marry a barbarian woman and lived together for many years. Unexpectedly, now Dong Quezi actually asked for his opinion, and asked for his opinion. But then again, for Dong Da's situation, he has a younger brother but no younger sister. I'm afraid marrying a barbarian woman is the only option. Of course, in Wu Wei's opinion, continuing to be a bachelor is also an option. But Dong Quezi is probably not happy about it. So he said seriously, Uncle Dong, I think it's okay. As long as you don't force it, marrying a woman who really wants to live is also a way. Otherwise, if she takes the betrothal gift and runs away, it will be enough for you to worry. Dong Quezi nodded repeatedly, that's right, that's right.